Amanda Hyde-Pierce here, Thrive OBM Academy. August Spotlight is with the wonderful, oh my gosh, Susan Payton. Susan is an international best-selling author. Cannot believe it. So excited to actually finally get this time with Susan. I've tried so much, but as you can imagine, she's very, very much in demand. But I will hand you over to Susan, who is waiting in the wings, and just let her talk to you. It's fantastic to see you, Susan. And what I'm going to do, if you don't mind, is literally just sit back and listen, because
Yeah.
I have been waiting for this for so long. There's so much there's so much about you that I can learn from as well. So I am going to go. People are probably watching right now are probably going, yeah, Amanda, shut up. Yeah, let's see if that can happen. But I will leave you just to go for it.
Yeah. And I might bring you in, so do keep listening. Let's get going. And we're going to start in this Aladdin's Cave thrift shop. Not quite sure what you would call it. It's in New York, and it sells just stuff, right? I don't know, whatever you call it. And the reason I'm bringing you here is because back in 2009, two guys by the name of Rob and Josh decided to do an experiment. And it was a really interesting experiment, because what they wanted to do is see if they could actually measure the ROI, right, the return on investment, for using storytelling in marketing. Interesting, because storytelling's it's quite an intangible thing, isn't it? It's quite hard to measure the actual results of telling a story, but they wanted to do it. So this is how they did it. They went to these kind of, bargain shops in New York, and they bought 100 items. Now, they were not looking for things of great value. They were not looking for antiques. In fact, their budget was $1 per item. So they literally were buying the kind of stuff we've all got on the back of cupboards, right? Collecting dust and chipped cups and all sorts of little knick-knacky things. So they bought 100 items for just over $100. Then what they did is they asked 100 writers to write a story about an item. So they gave each writer one item, and they said, just make up a story, right? Make up a story about the item. So the writers did. They wrote all kinds of stories, like the makeup brush that was owned by an old lady. And when she used it to put her makeup on, she became young again. Or the watch strap that whoever put it onto their wrist, they could literally pause time. How amazing would that be? Then what they did is they put the 100 items onto eBay. But instead of putting a product description for each item, they put the story. What do you think happened? Those 100 items that they had bought for just over $100 sold on eBay with their stories for just under $8,000.
What?
$8,000. Pretty impressive return on investment. I think you will agree.
Wow.
Who's going on eBay tonight to sell some? Exactly. So, really interesting experiment. And it begs the question, why? Why do you think adding a clearly made up, like these were clearly fictional stories in this case, but why do you think attaching a story to these items increased their value from $100 to $8,000? Obviously, I can't see comments. But if there are any, or if you've got any thoughts, Amanda, let me know.
Is it the person? Sorry, I see Venetia in there. I can see Tanika
Oh,
in
hi,
there.
Venetia.
So I can see there's quite a lot in there. Um, is it you're giving things meaning? Is it that connection? I don't know. Is it that connection?
Yeah,
People can connect.
there's absolutely connection. There's stories do so many things, right? For stories grab our attention to start with, right? They grab our attention. They keep us engaged. We don't daydream when we're, in the middle of watching a gripping film or we're reading a book. Stories really can keep us engaged like nothing else can. Stories have meaning, right? They appeal to our senses and our emotions. We connect with stories emotionally. They can have an impact on us, right? They can make us think about our own life. They can make us think about our own story. We tend to remember stories, right? They stay with us. In fact, our brain is literally programmed to tune into them. So they stay with us. We remember them and we often pass them on, right? Stories are really easy to pass on. So if stories grab our attention, keep us engaged, appeal to our senses and our emotions, impact us, make us reflect, stay with us, if we remember them, if we pass them on, who would like their marketing to be like that? Yeah, 100%, right?
Yeah.
And here's why. Oh, gone too far. Who loves a great story? We all do. Right? Every person loves a great story. It's why we watch the films. It's why we read books. It's why we love sitting around the dinner table with friends, catching up. It's all storytelling. It's why we love social media, right? Our brains and our body are literally programmed to tune into story. They even did a study that showed that if two people listen to the same story, their heartbeats actually sync up. Heart starts beating at the same time. That's bizarre, isn't it?
Oh, that's
Really weird.
lovely.
So we are really, it's part of our survival instincts is sharing those stories, passing them on. So it's why that storytelling in business, using stories in your marketing, is not just essential, and I do believe it is essential, and I think more and more it is becoming essential if you want to stand out from all the noise and the clutter and the all the AI generated content and all of the stuff that's out there, right, that's competing for your ideal clients' attention all the time. Storytelling will help you stand out, and when you do it right, when you've got the right stories, when you know how to make them relevant to your audience, when you know how to make them relatable, when you know how to tell the right story to the right person at the right time, it can become an absolute superpower in your business. But I do get that lots of business owners, they get that storytelling is powerful. They get that it's important. They know that they love stories, but they struggle to know, how do I use storytelling in my own marketing? Like, what stories do I share, and how much do I share, and how deep do I go? And should the stories be about me, or should they be about my customer? Right? We have all these stories. And even though we're natural storytellers, the minute we put our marketing hat on and we think, I've got to write something about my business, I've got to try and attract clients, then suddenly it's not so easy, right? And we struggle, and we're not too sure, and we're wondering if people even want to know our story. So I know that a lot of business owners struggle with this piece, and yet when you get it right, it is so, so powerful. So I wrote a book. I created a framework and I wrote a book about it to help business owners to, have a simple process that they can go through to start harnessing the power of storytelling. Start standing out from the crowd. Start making your content different and unique, and content that will connect with the people that you love working with. So in I haven't. In the book, it runs through my process, which is actually very, very simple. But it's important, and it's important to find these connections between the different stories that you can tell. So I'm going to quickly run you through the process, give you a bit of a bird's eye view of it. And then I'm going to come back to talk a little bit more about your personal story, because I do find that tends to be the one that people struggle with a bit.
Yeah,
I can talk about my customer, I can talk about what I do, but I don't really know what personal stories to share.
Yeah, and there's questions coming through already, Susan, and there's a couple about the personal story. And yeah, we can leave them to the end or we can weave them in, whatever it works best for you. But just you saying that, yeah, you're so on the money. That is a bit, you know your stuff, girl, don't you?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And yeah, so let me run you through the framework, and then I'm going to talk a bit more about the personal story, so then I can address those questions. So everything for me always starts with the personal story, the person, right? If I'm working one-to-one with a client or I'm working with people in my group, it's always like, tell me about you first. I want to know about you, your experiences, that journey that you've been on, you know, the lessons that you've learned, the setbacks along the way, the insights that you gained, the perspective that you now have, everything that you bring to your work, your passion, your ideas, your values, all the things that make you you. And you may have heard people say, you may have heard marketers saying, nobody cares about you. Nobody, they just care about themselves, right? Don't talk about you, talk about them. I don't find that is true. People want to connect with other people, right? Business is done by humans. People buy from people. We hear all of this stuff all the time, right? People connect with real people. Who do you think has more followers, Richard Branson or Virgin, the brand? Richard Branson, right? Because he's a human with real stories. He's a very good storyteller. And that's what people want. We want the human connection. So if you're just talking about your customer, you're just talking about what you do, and you're not really letting people see who you are, what you're about, what you stand for, what's important to you, you know, all the things that make you you, then we're not giving them something to connect with. We're not giving them a reason to choose us, right? So personal stories are really important, and I am going to come back to that one. But let me just run you through the rest of the process. Next, we move on to your business story. Businesses and brands don't just pop up from nowhere. There's always been a journey, and that journey is full of stories, right? That journey that you've been on, why it exists, what problem it exists to solve, what difference it makes, what does the business stands for, what's the business values, what does the business believe, right? What's the core belief behind your business? If your business was a storyteller, what stories would it tell? And of course, there'll be some overlap between your personal story and your business story, because your journey, your personal journey has led you here doing what you now do. But we do also want to weave in some of those business stories, right? This is why I do what I do. This is what the business is about. This is, you know, where the business is going. This is the mission that I'm on. This is the vision that I've got for the business. People love to buy into a company's purpose, right? A company's mission. So we do want to be weaving our business story in as well. And then we look at your customer story. This is obviously super important. We really, really need to understand their story. And I'm not necessarily talking about the things that some people get very excited about, like where do they live and what do they drive and what do they eat? And, you know, I can see that can be helpful sometimes, but I'm talking about their story. Like, what is going on for them right now? How are they feeling? What are they thinking? What are they doing? Where are they now? And where do they want to get to? And what's in the way? What's keeping them stuck? if we can understand that story, that journey that they're on, then we can understand where we fit into their story, right? How we need to show up in their story, what role we play in that journey that they're on, right? We want to show up as the guide, as the person who can help them get to where they want to, lead them to that happy ever after that they want for their story. But we need to understand their story first. So they're the three main stories that we unpack, right? The personal, the business, and the customer. But as I was working one-to-one with a lot of clients years ago, and I was taking them through this process, I noticed that a lot of things were jumping out at their stories. So I never had to say to a client, well, what's your why? Why do you do what you do? I never had to ask them that, because it would jump out of their story. Like, I would see their why. I would see what was important to them, what led them here, why they were doing what they do. So I keep clicking on the slide because I'm so used to being in PowerPoint. So yeah, we go a little bit deeper on that. We have a look at your why, because you've got your personal why, right? You've got your, well, I want to work from home. I want freedom. I want autonomy. I want to pick up the kids from school. I want to be able to travel. I want to work on my laptop, whatever your personal reason is. Nobody's going to get excited about that. But you've got your why, and it's important to you. But you've also got your bigger why. And your bigger why is the impact you have when you do the thing you do, the difference that you make when you show up every day and do the work that you do, when you help the clients get the result that they get. That impact, that difference that you're making, that's the bigger why. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing it for a handful of people or a room full of people or thousands of people. It's not about how many people you do. It's just about the difference that you make to the people that you work with. So we look at your why. Then we go to look at your people. So between your personal story and your customer story is your people. And this is where we're just really diving deeper into who are the people that you really feel called to serve, right? That you get excited about working with, that you can make the biggest difference to. The people that, and this always comes out of people's story. People often say, oh, I don't know niche. I don't know, people keep telling me to narrow down. I don't know how to do that. Well, if you tell me your story, I can almost without fail guarantee it will come out of your story. I had a business coach I worked with, and as she was a client, we were doing her messaging. And she was very general, she was just small business owners. That was about as far as she'd got with any kind of, niching or specializing in anything. Small business owners, as in small businesses, not small people. And she said, I don't really know that my stories are relevant because, a big part of my story is that when I was young and when my children were young, when they were very little, I really struggled to keep my business going because I wanted to be present. I wanted to be a good mum to my kids. I wanted to be there for them. But I also wanted to run my business, and I couldn't work out how to do both. And I felt like I wasn't doing both very well. I felt like I was stretching myself too thin. I'm sure a lot of your audience will relate to this, Amanda, right? We're just feeling like we're kind of trying to keep everything, trying to keep all the plates in the air, but we don't feel like we're doing a very good job of it. And as she was telling me this story, as we were unpacking this story, she suddenly had that aha moment. And she said, oh, that's who I want to help. That's who I can work with. I want to work with business owners who've got very young children, like preschool, under 4 or 5 years old. And they're struggling. They're trying to do that juggle. They're trying to be a parent. They're trying to be a business owner. But they don't know how to do it. Right? They're really struggling, because she said at the time I struggled. And in fact, she put her business on hold for a few years because she felt so guilty and, you know, for her kids, for her clients. It just didn't work. And she had to pick it back up a few years later. And that was really hard, trying to pick a business back up. But she said, if I knew then what I know now, I could do it now. I would know how to do both and be present and enjoy both. So that's what she decided. They're the people I want to work with, right? They're the business owners I want to work with. Mm-hmm. So suddenly all those stories she's had were very relevant, right? All those stories that she had about struggling when her kids were little and having to put her business on hold, suddenly they were the exact stories that she needed to share to really attract the people that she wanted to work with. So it's important to know who you want to work with, and because then you can start to see how to make your stories really relatable to them. Mm-hmm. And then we look at your value. And by value, I mean, what is the value to your ideal client of what you help them do? Right? Because you could be the best storyteller in the world, but if people don't see the value to them of how you're going to change their life, their business, their health, their wealth, their relationships, whatever it is, if they don't see the value of that, they're not going to buy. They're just going to think you tell great stories, right? So we want to also really demonstrate, and we can use storytelling to do this, demonstrate the value to our ideal client of what we help them do. And then we get to the sweet spot in the middle, which is where we know exactly who we're talking to. We know exactly what stories are going to resonate. We can tell the right story to the right people at the right time in a way that's going to connect with them. And they're going to, cut through the noise so that they do hear us and they see that we get them. So that is the process in a nutshell. A lot of unpacking stories, linking them together, seeing those golden threads that connect everything up, joining the dots, and really getting to a place where we understand what stories to share and how to share them. Like I say, the personal stories are really important. But one of the mistakes I see people make is thinking they've got to get it all in one post, right? They try and unpack and tell their whole story, or they get completely overwhelmed by the idea of, but I've done so much and I've done so many things and I've, there's been a long journey and there's been lots going on. How on earth do I even start to put that down into something concise and engaging that people are going to want to read? So one of the ways that we can get started with sharing personal stories very quickly is, instead of thinking of the whole story, the whole journey, right? If you imagine your life today is a movie, instead of telling the whole movie, we could just think about moments along the way, right? You've had a lifetime of moments on that journey. And some of those moments, looking back, were maybe quite pivotal, right? Quite defining moments, quite significant. We probably didn't realize at the time, that we made that decision or walked away from that relationship or, whatever, left the job or just made a decision or went to an event or something. We'll have hundreds of these moments along the way that have influenced the path that we've gone, the direction that we've gone in, the actions that we've taken, decisions that we've made. And those moments all lead us down the path that we have traveled, right? And led us to where we are now. So instead of trying to tell the whole story, just think about a moment along the way. So Amanda.
Yes, say.
Is there a particular moment along your journey that could be a story that you could share?
Yeah, massively. Light bulbs are going off all over the place for me.
Awesome.
There is, and it might, I'm not sure if I can articulate this very well, and it's, but there's a moment in my life where I remember sitting in an office. I worked for 20 odd years in in an office, in the office environment. And let me just make a little bit of a thing. Yeah. In the office environment. And I remember a plumber or an electrician or whatever coming into the office to do some work. And I remember sitting there going, these people are so lucky. They can have businesses of their own. I've just been doing admin for 20 odd years. Nobody's looking for admin support. I could never own my own business doing that. At that time, I didn't know there was such a thing as virtual assistant or OBM. And it's a moment that I go back to thinking, I truly believe I was made for more than working for somebody else. I truly believe I was made for impact. I truly believe I could have an impact. And in that moment, I didn't think it was possible. And I always come back to that moment. And I don't know if that aligns with anything there. And but it's just a moment that has really sat with me for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And even sharing that story, right, makes people reflect on that moment for them, that moment that they just decided that they didn't want this anymore. I hear a lot of people have got the story that, they had children or they wanted children, and they just knew that life they were leading and all the commuting and the long hours and the stress just wasn't going to work for them to allow them to be the parent that they wanted to be. So it's a story that will resonate with a lot of people. And it's just one moment. I know it's the moment that came to you straight away, but actually when you start thinking about moments, you will realize that you have a lifetime of them, and they can just be little snippets of your story that you share, right? We don't have to share our story in one big, great, long, well, this is where I was, and this is the journey I went on, and this is what I did next. We can just share moments. And in fact, in my book, at no point do I say, here's my story. What I do is I weave my story throughout the book. There's little snippets of my story throughout the book. And as a way to get started sharing your personal story, it's really helpful to just think about some of those moments along the way that you can share.
Wow. Yeah, sorry, it just light bulb. It's kind of listening to you. It's like I knew that, but how come I haven't? Why is that? It's the little bits, but it's you sharing about moments. You don't have to put everything in one post, and not that I do, but it's just honestly, ding, 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 all over the place. Sorry.
Yeah,
Susan.
and people often say to me, in my group program, people often say, oh, it's so hard. My posts come out so long because I've got so much to share. But really, or quite often the feedback I give them is I'll go back and I'll read it and I'll say, that's 5 stories in there. Like, you didn't need to tell all of that in one story. Like, just pick one of those things in your story that happened, and let's do a post about that. What were the questions about your personal story?
Oh gosh, bear with me 1 second. There's quite a few on here, so I'm just going to take that off just one moment. Let me see. Julie. Okay, so let me see if I can show this. Can I do this? I can. This is a bit fancy. It's a bit fancy. It's a bit small. Julie, what should I focus on first when creating my story, my skills, my journey, or the impact? Yeah, it might be that you've answered these along the way, but
yeah, and you want to share all of those things, right? But starting with choosing a moment along the way is often one. Normally, every time I do this masterclass, people come off going, oh, I've thought of, at least one, if not, have page full of notes of stories that to get you started. I'm also going to share something with you towards the end, which is story prompts that I send out. So, and they're just a little prompt. And I'm throughout the month of August, I'm sending one every day. And people are literally messaging me saying, these are brilliant because, they're like little prompts that just make you think, oh, yes, of course, I've got a story about that. So I will share the link to get those shortly.
Yeah. Okay, there's versions of personal. Some of them are very similar. I'll share maybe one. Let me see. There was one. Was that Julie as well? It was definitely. No, it was Jean. So yeah. Okay, bear with me. How can I use my personal story to connect with my potential clients, but without giving too much of my personal life away? We've had a couple of versions of that. People not wanting to, be personal without being personal.
Yes. And it is that finding that balance, and that is the process that I take people through. And I'm also going to give you a link to get a free copy of my book. And you can literally work through. It's a very how-to guide, right? It's not a book of theory. I'm not going to sit there and spend, whatever it is, 30,000 words telling you why you should be sharing stories. It's very practical. So there's exercises, there's a workbook, there's, so that will really help you to start to work through the different stories and to start to see the connections, start to link them up. And yes, sharing, and it's a good point, Jean, I'm glad you asked, because sharing personal stories is never about, oh, you've got to tell everybody your deepest, darkest secrets, right? You've got to get all your dirty laundry out. You've got to, tell people things you're not comfortable sharing. Absolutely not. It's never about that. The kind of prompts that I send out are things like, when have you had to take a leap of faith? Right? When if you just had to do something, even though you didn't know if it was going to work out the way you wanted it to, like when if you had to get out of your comfort zone, just little stories along the way. We also think about your core story. We've all got that core story, which is, and Amanda's kind of talked about the start of hers there, where, okay, there was a challenge. There was something that wasn't working for me. I wanted to see how I could change this trajectory I was on. I went on a bit of a quest to find out, like, how can I get to where I want to get to, have the life I want to have, be the person I want to be. So you went on this journey and you ended up creating your academy. And so you've got that kind of core story that tells people literally how you ended up here doing what you now do. And that's an important story to have, right? If you're on a podcast being interviewed and they go, what's your story? Or you're giving a talk, you might want to have a very short version of that story that you can share. But when I talk about your personal stories, I'm talking about all the stories, that just help people see who you are, what you're about, what you bring to the table, what you're passionate about, what's important to you, that journey that you've been on. And there's lots and lots and lots of stories that we can share that just kind of invite people in to just say, hey, this is me. See if you connect, see if, same with you, Amanda, right? People are going to check you out. They're going to see if they're going to look at the academy, but they're also going to look at you and think, is she someone I feel like is a good fit? Is she someone I feel like I want to be in my corner? I want her to guide me. I want her to go on this journey with me. Right? You're the Yoda for them.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
Yoda.
So yes, hope that answered those questions. Let's let me
to the
carry
presentation on. Okay, bear with. Let me see. Oh, look at
fabulous.
Me.
So the other question I often get when people are thinking about sharing a story, particularly if we think about this, picking a moment along the way, and then people say, okay, I've got a moment. How do I start this story? Like, where do I even start? Because remember, I said stories grab people's attention and keep them engaged. And it's important that we do that. So think about, I forgot about this slide. So yeah, I was just giving you some prompts actually to think about a moment when you've had to step up, or you've had to think differently, or had to walk away from something, or do something when everyone else was telling you that it was a bad idea or you couldn't do it, and you've had to overcome a challenge, and you've had to fight for what you believe in, or there will be all these moments along the way. Then the next question I get asked is, how do I start my story? So where does a James Bond film start? Right bang in the middle of the action, right? He is running across the rooftops. He's being shot at. He's being chased. He's being blown up, whatever it is. You don't want to miss the opening scene of a James Bond film, right? Because they drop you right into the middle of the action. There's no filling in the background. There's no telling you what they're going to tell you, setting the scene, And this is the thing, right? We don't have to always give people all the background information that we think we have to give them. We could start our story right in the moment. And actually, Amanda, you did a good job of that. You said, right, I was sat at my desk at work and these plumbers were coming in and I was looking at them thinking, God, how nice to have the freedom to have your own business, right? So you can start your story right in the moment. Here's an example of a post that I did, was actually a few years ago now, on LinkedIn. But this is an example of me starting in the moment. I said I was sat at the kitchen table, crying into my very large glass of wine, telling my husband something I could no longer ignore. My business wasn't a business. Now, obviously, there's more to the post. That is just the opening line. But you see how I have gone straight to the moment. I've literally brought people to my kitchen table.
Yeah.
I've told them I was feeling emotional. I've painted I've got my glass of wine. I've got my husband sitting there.
Yeah.
And I've said my business wasn't a business. I've created a bit of intrigue. Like, people are like, oh, really?
It's like, what does
that mean? Like, I want to read on, right? That's what we want to do. So this is only one way of starting stories. I'm not suggesting you start every single story like this, but one of the ways you can start a story is think about a moment and take people to that moment. And actually, this post was then about how I had this group of women. This is way back in 2015. And I actually decided to go into the group the next morning and tell my story. And that's when everything changed for me, right? So it's a very relevant story for me to tell. But that's how I often start it, is literally take people to that moment. Here's an example of somebody who saw this masterclass probably about 18 months ago now. And she messaged me about 5 minutes after I'd finished the masterclass. She messaged me and said, oh, you know that you told us to think about a moment. Well, I did. And I jumped onto social media and I posted. And here's a link if you want to have a look. So I went to have a look. And what was great was not only that she had started the story in the moment, but there was already a comment there that I absolutely loved, right? So this was the start of her post. She said, we were walking hand in hand along a quiet road in the warmth of the early evening sun, surrounded by the heady fragrance of verbena. I'd been mulling a big decision over for some time, and I knew I couldn't keep quiet any longer. As we strolled, I said gently to my husband, I can't do this anymore. She was talking about her business. She wasn't talking about her marriage. So just, but that's how she opened it, right? Just straight to the moment, straight to what she was saying. By the time I went to have a look at the post, somebody had already commented, and this was their comment. Your first sentence has me hooked. Such a great storyteller. I've shared with my network as having worked with hundreds of introverts over the years. I know that so many feel the same. I know they'll get huge benefits and confidence boosts from your insights. Do you remember what I said about the beginning, right? This is what stories do. They grab attention. That story grabbed that lady's attention. It kept her engaged. She'd clearly read the whole thing. It had an impact on her, right? She'd thought about it. She shared it. She shared that story. She said, I've shared it with my network, because she immediately saw the value in sharing that story. Wow. And this is the power of stories, right? Is that they are very easy to pass on, and they really do connect with people. And even if you read something about somebody often, or even you see a speaker and they tell you a bit about themselves, even if they're not for you, like even if you're not their ideal client, we'll often think, oh, who do I know that I could connect, because I really buy into them and I love their story and I feel a connection with them. So even though it's not for me, who do I know that would be a really good person to refer to them? And that is the power of storytelling, right? There's not much else in marketing. You can go out there all day long and say, this is what I do, and this is who I help, and this is my service, and this is what it costs. But nothing gets engagement and connection and has people passing your details on like stories do. Richard Branson gets it, right? He says the story of Virgin, its ups and downs, opportunities and challenges, is what attracts people to our products and services, and also to work with us. We would be nothing without our story. I don't know if you guys watch programs like, Dragon's Den. Right? And people come on and they go, this is our product. And this is, when we started the business, this is how much money we've made. And then inevitably one of the dragons will say, so tell us the story. Like, tell us your story. Like, what were you doing before? What's led you here? And then they will share a story, right? They'll share a story about some health challenge they had to overcome, or something that was going on in their life, or some problem that they faced that they decided that they needed to, they couldn't find a solution to. So they needed to work out themselves how they could get themselves past this challenge, this obstacle, so that they could get the result that they want. And they share that story. They share their journey. Often they're journeys that really connect with us emotionally. And then immediately we're like, oh, we want the dragons to invest, right? We want their business to do well. We want them to succeed. We want them to go on and win the day, because they shared enough of their story for us to feel very connected to them. Is this all making sense?
Yes. Oh my gosh. There's loads of questions.
Okay. Do you want to give me some of the questions?
There was one there that it just kind of, I feel this is a story in itself. Anyway, somebody just put this. Can I just
I don't think there's anything interesting about my story. I'm just a virtual assistant. I'm good at what I do, but I just fell into it. No big story. It just happened. Honestly, I hear that such a lot. Is the first thing I would say. And your story is fascinating to other people. I know you don't think it is, right? Because it's just your life. It's just what's happened. I just fell into it. It's just, there's no drama. There's no big, I didn't, it's not rag to riches. I didn't die for 30 seconds and see a light. And, I haven't got some story fit for a Hollywood blockbuster film. Here's the thing. Nor does anyone else, right? And actually, when you think about stories that connect, stories that we relate to, they're the stories that are similar to ours, or that there's something in the story that we can connect with. So those great big, I don't know, I died and spoke to the angels stories, we can't relate to that story, right? Because that doesn't, we haven't got any experience of that. When I said that I went into my group and I told my story and it completely changed my business, my story was not a story fit for a film, right? It was just a normal story. At that point, I'd been a single mum for a few years. I'd had some health issues. I was just talking about the ups and downs of being a business owner. I talked about what got me through the tough times, right? I just talked about what I wanted and what was important to me, and what I wanted for the group, and that journey that I'd been on that had led me here. It didn't connect with people because it was a big drama. It connected with people because it was very relatable, right? You'll have had times in your business where you felt like everybody else had it sussed, right? That story about me sat at the kitchen table drinking my glass of wine saying my business wasn't a business. People relate to that story because we've all been through those times. You might even be going through it now where you're thinking, how comes everyone else is picking up clients and I'm not, or you're feeling, you're starting to doubt yourself and your own capabilities. But actually, when we hear stories of other people who were in that place and managed to work through that and get through it and have come out the other side and are now sharing, just what worked, how I got through it, what kept me going, what I was thinking, what I was feeling, they are the stories that we relate to. Not the big dramas, the everyday stories of the everyday ups and downs that we all experience.
Yeah. All that. I love that bit because was that Abby who said, yeah, because like Abby, it's like, okay, maybe there's no, and if there are big dramas in my life, I might not want to talk about
exactly.
it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I love that.
My stories that I tell range from walking through M&S with my left boob out on show. Wetting myself in church. I've also got the other stories, but I share all sorts of stories. And I know, because I understand my customer story so well, I can always relate them back to them, make them relevant, make them relatable.
Yeah.
So it's not even always the content of the story.
Yeah.
It's just you coming across as someone very relatable.
Relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is not, I don't think it's a question. I think somebody just, when we were talking about moments earlier,
Yeah.
a moment for me was having my little girl. It changed everything for me. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So we can all relate to that, right?
Mm.
We all know, those of us who are a parent, just how it changes. Everything changes. The priorities change, So those kind of stories are very relatable to people.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see. I've got. What should I don't know how many questions to give you in this moment. Do you want me to just do a couple
Well,
more?
shall I finish? I think I've
Let's do
only
that.
got a
Let's
couple
do
more
that.
slides, and then we can spend the rest of the time answering questions. I said at the beginning, right, who loves a great story? And even though I can't see you, I know you will have all put your hand up, because everybody loves a great story, which means your ideal client loves stories. Those people that you're trying to reach, those people who are a really good fit for you, the people you really want to work with, they're out there, they're reading content, they're on social media, and they love stories too. So if you're not sharing stories, then you're missing a huge opportunity to connect with people in a way that nothing else does. And no AI bot can do it for you, right? I'm not anti ChatGPT. I think it's brilliant. I think it's, we've got a lot more to come. I think it's going to, change the game for a lot of people. But there is one thing it cannot do, and it never will be able to do. It's not you, right? It can't go back. It can't go back to that time, that moment, and stand in your shoes and feel what you felt, right? It's not an emotional being. It doesn't know what you took from that, what insights you gained, how you got through that tough time, how you've come out the other side. It hasn't got, it can't do that for you. It can help you to craft stories. It can help you, put them together in a way that will make them concise and punchy and compelling. But you need to unpack the stories first. You need to do that bit of work first, because an AI bot can't do that for you. But when you get it right, and when you're prepared to put a little bit of work in to unpack those stories and share them, it really is one of the most powerful things that connects us as humans, is the stories that we share. So I have got a couple of resources for you guys to help you get going. I am, like I said, sending out a story prompt every weekday in August. And so if you are watching this in August, then you can jump onto this page, prompts, and you can sign up for that. It's completely free, and if you sign up today, you'll get your first prompt today, and then you will get another prompt every weekday left in August. If you are watching this after August, still go check out that page, because I may well be, after August, I may well make it an evergreen thing that people can sign up to at any time. So
just to say, wherever you're watching right now, I'm actually just typing that link into the groups as well. So you can click on that link from the groups. You don't have to sit and type this in and come away from the screen.
Amazing. So that's a little story prompt that to send you every day. And then the other thing is, I put a pack together. I've actually got a fancy QR code for that one, if it's any easier.
Yeah.
But this is called the Storyteller's Pack. It's full of examples, little stories, how to start stories. There's some resources in there. There's a Storyteller's Day Planner in there. There's a link to my free book in there. So that's also something that you guys can download. And these are just all things to just help you get started, answer some of those questions that you've got, give you examples. I know I learn from seeing things, I want to actually see, give me an example of what that looks like. So that's pack is to help you with that. So the pack and the prompts together is a really good way to get started.
Oh, Susan, thank you. You mentioned about a free book there as well. Can I share the link? Would that be
yes? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got that, haven't you? Yeah. So they can download.
Sorry. I'm pressing all kinds of buttons. Sorry.
There you go.
There we go.
thebusinessofstorage.com/freebook, and it's obviously a digital download. If you want to actually have a hard copy in your hand, you can go to Amazon. There's also the audio book, there's a Kindle version, but if you want to just download a free PDF version, then you can grab that too.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. So I think Rabina just mentioned there about, you mentioned about a link for prompts. Can we have that here? So Rabina, whichever, I don't know what group you're watching this from at the moment, but I have put that link directly into that group as well. Okay.
Amazing.
Take that off. Take that off. Cancel. Not taking that off yet. Oh, if you honest to goodness, hide. There we go.
Awesome. Well, we have got a couple of minutes left if there are any other questions that you want me to answer. But otherwise, I'd love to know, what people have taken away from it, what they, what was the key takeaway, and if anybody's got any thoughts about what they're going to do, how they're going to take action, what story they're going to share, then I'd love to know.
Yeah. So Claire said there, you said about knowing your customers' stories. How do you know that if they aren't necessarily good storytellers?
If they aren't, how do you do that if they aren't necessarily good storytellers? Right. So unpacking your customer story is about just asking them the right questions and listening, right? So when you speak to clients, I don't know if you guys do any kind of, discovery call or when you first get a client on and you're chatting, make sure you record it. Just check with them that they're happy with that, but make sure you record it and then listen back. Like, how did they describe the problem? What did they say that they wanted? What did they say? How did they say they were feeling about the way things are now? What did they want to change? How will their life be better when they've made those changes? So actually listening and grabbing their own story. Ask them, like, how are you feeling right now? What would you love to change? There's actually questions in the book under your customer story chapter. There's actually questions that you can ask your ideal clients. Things like, in a perfect world, what would be available to solve that problem? But it's just listening to what's going on for them. There's also other ways, if you haven't got people that you're talking to, you can go into groups, right? And where your ideal client is. So for you guys, I'm guessing it's groups of business owners. You could go in and you could search for some keywords like, I don't know, processes or whatever you think, people might be asking about that is a problem that you can help them with. And then again, you can just read them, right? Just see, how are people saying it? How are people describing the problem? What is that having that problem stopping them from doing? Like, what's going on for them right now? There's lots of ways to unpack that story. It's not necessarily telling them to tell you their story, although, that is a great question when you are talking to a potential client, is just tell me a little bit about you, tell me a little bit about your story and, where you are now and where do you want the business to go? And what's your vision and what's in the way of that at the moment? What's the problem that's stopping you from taking the business where you want to take it? And they'll tell you their story. You'll be able to unpack it. You could do a survey. You could do a questionnaire. You could put it into group and say, would anybody be prepared to answer this questionnaire? And then just have a few of those questions in there to help to start to put their story together.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds so simple but effective. Oh, bear with me. You said about your why. Oh my gosh, that has helped me think about loads of moments and stories I can share. I feel like a huge barrier has been removed today. Thank you, Susan.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yes.
And that is the thing, sometimes we hold back and we're worried or we've got these preconceived ideas about what storytelling is. But actually, my big thing is that I make it simple for people. So I'm really glad that it's helped you, Jean, and I hope you've had some aha moments, and I look forward to seeing your stories.
Oh, bless. Is there Sarah? I saw Sarah. Oh, it's on screen. Okay. What are some simple ways I can weave my personal story into my marketing without feeling too salesy?
Yeah, well, it's everything I've just said. It's it's those moments, those milestones. If you the prompts that I'm sending out, that's the kind of thing. Like, think about a moment along the way. Think about a milestone, right? Your business journey is full of milestones. Whether it's your first client, whether it was the first time you did a masterclass, the first time you spoke on stage, the first time you got 1,000 followers, there's all these milestones along the way. The first time I filled my program, or or when I qualified, or all these little milestones along the way. They could all be little stories that we're sharing. It's just letting people see who we are, that journey we've been on, what we're about, what's important to us. Even stories. I think the prompt that went out today was, are you an early bird or a night owl? Like, do you have a morning routine? Like, just tell people a little bit about, something about you that people will just find interesting. They don't have to be long posts. Some of them can be really super short, but you're just giving little glimpses of who you are, what you're about, what you stand for. And the right people, and this is key, it will attract the right people.
People, yeah.
So when you're doing these posts, you're always keeping in mind, who is that ideal client, right? You're not putting these posts out for your family or your friends or your ex-colleagues or your ex-boss, or don't worry about not even anybody else in your industry, right? Forget about them. Just focus on your ideal client and sharing stuff that will connect with the right people.
Yeah, I love this. There's a question just come up. I'm like, yeah, look at this. It's not a question. I think it's a comment. I kind of felt boring before this call. Now I'm like, hell yeah, I can do this.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that's brilliant.
I love that.
I'm so
Thank
glad.
you. Who was that? Sorry, who was that? That was
Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. I love
Hell,
that.
yes, you can.
Hell yeah. That kind of girl right there. I'm just
amazing.
I want to make sure we might have done this one. Have we done this one? Julie, I know Julie's had lots of little comments and questions. Bless you. Thank you so much, Julie. Light bulb moment for me is people need to see our value to them. I kind of knew that, feels silly, but I've been focused on what I do, the focus being me rather than what they are looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
It's, what I do is I help people tell stories, but they don't want to be a better storyteller. What they want is the connection. They want clients showing up already knowing that they want to work with you, right? You want your content to connect. You want to grow your business and get clients that are a really good fit for you. That's the value to you of what I help you do, right? And the value to your clients of what you help them do. And actually, even when you talk about what you do, that's what you want to be talking about. Not the detail of what you do, but what you help them do.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I think a lot of these probably been answered along the way. Impactor. Is that Ariana? Let me just try and pull this up. Depends where the group is. I'm getting used to it. Ariana, what should I? Oh, I can press this. Yep. Ariana, what should I focus on first when creating my story?
Oh, yeah, we did that one, I think.
My skills, my journey, my impact. Yeah, we've had that one. Bear with. How do I balance? We've had that one.
I can't hear my dog snoring.
Is it normal for my why? If we had this from Anne yet, is it normal for my why? I think at the beginning you were talking about my why. Is it normal for my why to change over time? If that happens, could that jar my messages or be a barrier to consistency and becoming known for what I do?
Your why is very personal, and like I said, you've got those two whys, really, right? You've got and I've struggled with this myself for years because I used to think, I don't have a big why. Like, I'm not trying to change the world. So I didn't really know. I thought I had to have some big socially conscious goal to, end poverty or something. But actually, when you just focus on the difference that you make, then that's that bigger why. So your personal why might change too, right? You might have started your business because you wanted to be able to do the school run. Now your kids are grown up and left home, so your why is different. Now you want to be able to travel, or you want to be able to just work part-time, or you want to grow, right? You want to scale. You want to actually start really leaning into this business and seeing how far you can take it, see what you're capable of. So your personal why absolutely can change. And then that difference that you make to people, that can change too, right? Depending on what you're doing. Your story evolves, your business evolves, your process will evolve, your clients will evolve, right? You'll get clearer and clearer on who they are and you know what stories resonate with them. For a lot of people over COVID, right, stories changed, the way people work changed, businesses had to evolve, messaging had to shift, stories actually were very, very powerful. But we do need to keep checking in with our customer story, with our why, with all of these things to make sure that they're still relevant. But it's still, you still got that kind of core thing that you're known for, or that you want to get known for. And if that changes, right, if something changes, if you just start, if you're going one way with your business and then suddenly you go, actually, do you know what, I'm going to change track, which is what I did. My original group was the business of mums. And then it became the business of stories when I realized that storytelling was the thing I wanted to focus on. So I often get asked by people, oh, what do you do if you change track and suddenly you're talking about something different? It's really simple. You just document the journey, right? You just share that with people. You just say, I've had a realization, or things have changed for me, or, you know, something actually, I've had an aha moment, or I've realized that these particular clients are the clients that I really want to work with. You know, just talk about that change, share that content, share that journey, invite people into it. I did a post last week saying, you know, when I wrote my book, do you know when I started sharing about my book? Before I'd even written the first word. Right? And people go to me, oh, that's really brave. You know, what if you hadn't finished it? Well, then I'll say that too, you know, why I haven't finished it, but I did finish it. And I literally shared the journey from the minute I decided I was going to write a book. And I shared word count every day. I shared the ups, the downs, the good days, the bad days. I shared the messy middle when it's all like, oh my God, it doesn't even make any sense anymore. I shared the whole journey, the choosing the book cover, you know, everything. By the time that book came out, I had so many people following my journey, signed up to the wait list that I created for the book to come out. It went to #1 in the UK, #1 in the States. You know, it's a huge, it was a huge launch because I'd shared the journey. Imagine if I'd have just suddenly come out and said, hey guys, I wrote a book. Go buy my book. Like, I wouldn't have got anywhere near the traction and momentum that I got by sharing that whole journey with them.
Yeah, it's just so relatable. Even though people, you know, on your list, they might not necessarily be writing books themselves, the relatable story of ups and downs and can I do this? What if I can't do this? What if it doesn't come to pass? What if, and all those little bits, they might not be exact to other people's stories, but the emotion, the journey is that's the common thread.
Yes.
Relatability, the human story.
Yes.
And that's what people are attracted to. And I love that. And there was Venetia just says, I'm already part of Susan Payton's program and I'm enjoying what I've done so far. I know Venetia too.
Oh, amazing.
Beautiful person.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh, thank you, Venetia.
So yeah, we're going to come to a close. Oh, we're over the hour. Typical me. I talk too much. Sorry about that.
No worries. No, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Amazing. And for everyone watching, I've put in the prompts in the different groups, and also I'll be sending a recording out today also with those links. And I believe, Susan, you are doing a challenge in October as well. So again, for
Yes.
people who've signed up, people on my list anyway, I'm going to keep you up to date with what Susan's doing too. But do sign up for her bits and bobs as well. But I will also be sending you out links to let you know what she's up to, because this is just incredibly powerful. I have been in my zone or versions of my zone for many, many years now, and still sitting here today with Susan, just powerful for me. So thank you
Oh,
so, so much. So,
no, thank you for
okay,
having
everybody,
me.
thank you, Susan.
Gonna take it slow.